section.
Yeah.
That one?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, side view.
Okay.
That's that camera right there.
Got it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's roll. We're going to get started here. Let me press record. We got the track armed.
I think you got an echo in the feed.
Oh, what?
Do we have an echo in the feed?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you guys do.
Oh.
The two of you, I don't.
Oh boy. I don't hear it.
I don't either, but it's in the feed, Patrick says. If he listens in on the other one. There's no viewers right now. That's fine. So we'll fix it. Echo in the feed. Oh shit, 3 viewers. Hold on, y'all. We got an echo in the feed. So Patrick, do we think there's a mix minus issue somewhere? Okay, feed. Patrick.
Yes.
I'm going to play a YouTube video. Tell me if that echoes in the feed.
That there's safety in adulthood, that people can make their own choices about vibing with each other or liking each other.
Oh, yeah, there it is. So you sending your desktop audio?
I don't have that one. Oh. Hold on.
Or you're sending your monitor to the chat channel to program as well.
We're echoing now.
Oh, yeah. That's some sweet, sweet echo. Monitor off.
Rock on.
Monitor off on the pro
chat. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but we got okay, global settings, ProTube chat. I didn't do anything. You know, I think there was a software update to Streamlabs because it's a 1.12.5. Hey, can anyone in the chat tell me they're getting an echo? I know Patrick said we are, but sometimes he lies to test me. I'm just kidding. It can't be on the Rodecaster, I don't think. See, I had it all dialed in. Patrick came over one day and just jacked shit up. Actually, he fixed everything, and I don't remember what he did. Output, routing. Okay, we'll go to USB 1. USB 1's on a mix minus. So it won't hear itself. I'm talking you through it, Patrick. USB 1 chat is on a mix minus. USB 2 is Spotify coming through. Oh. That should have been on a mix minus, I think. No, it doesn't matter. It's still echoing on the feed. So that would mean it's in a global setting in Streamlabs. Okay, let's do this. Patrick, can you hear me? Is there an echo in the feed now? Echo, test. Hello. Hello. There is not. Okay, I'm going to play a video real quick.
Coworkers that we like, not meeting our outside friends. Like we tend to compartmentalize.
Good?
Sweet.
Okay. Let's do... Can you hear that music?
Yep.
All right. I'll tell you what it was later. It was me. All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Let's go ahead and get the show on the road. Sorry, there's technical issues when you go live. That's just how the shit pans out. Okay. We're going to go ahead and roll the intros. Are we coming in hot at all, Patrick? Or are we sounding good? Everything's metering good over here. Okay. All righty, here we are. Good morning, my love. Hold on.
This podcast contains adult themes and language. The views expressed here are our own opinions and experiences. We are not medical professionals.
In this podcast, we discuss our opinions about mental health, sobriety, addiction, and our pursuit of happiness and peace. This is Sober Mind.
Oh, man. Happy Saturday. Good morning, Judy, my love. I can't look to the left. I'll explain why in a sec.
Good morning.
Patrick, my dear friend, how are you?
Good. Glasses are still a little steamy from mowing the lawn.
Yeah, I was going to say you look a little paltry. It's humid out there. I went on my 5K this
Yep.
morning. I feel like a bag of smashed assholes, if you will. Patrick, I started this 48 hours ago, and I didn't want to tell you about it because I wanted to surprise you on the stream. I met with my psychiatrist, and I was supposed to be tapering off of Effexor, and I'm white-knuckling just cold turkey. It's the most brutal antidepressant to do that with. You're really not supposed to. So I could throw up at any minute. If I do, I'll just have to bounce out of here. But what happens is when you look left or right, you get audible electric shocks and visual distortion. It's really, really bad. Last night's sleep was the worst I've ever had in my life. I woke up feeling like I drank half a bottle of whiskey. And I had just all night long, dreams and nightmares that were super vivid. I had a lucid one to where I thought I was about to pee the bed. I couldn't wake myself up. I'm like, I am totally dreaming, but I cannot stop what's happening. It's bizarre, man. Finally pulled myself out of it and went to the bathroom. And I woke up this. So here's what's crazy about this is I had a real good discussion with the psychiatrist, but I just decided, I'm like, I can't. I'm still missing that little spark of happiness. You know, that like when you smell fresh air or fresh coffee and you're like, man, that smells good. All I can describe being on Effexor, Wellbutrin, and Depakote, that's 3. That's too much. I'm not psychotic. So every time one of them doesn't work right, she would just put me on another one to sort of counteract it. And I'm missing passion. And it's been getting progressively worse to where a lot of things are getting dulled. And I know people get dulling sensations in the very beginning of this stuff, but mine was not good. So anyway, if you taper off of it, you just kind of prolong the withdrawal symptoms to where they're not as bad for a longer period of time. I just had to pull the Band-Aid off. So I'm on 48 hours. It should peak at the worst point around 5 days. So it's going to get worse. And then it'll take about a week or two to sort of subside. But man, it's brutal. But here's the thing: I was telling Judy this morning, I can't look at her. I see her in the screen. 'Cause I'll shock myself if I look to the left. But I feel physically horrible, but I'm starting to get such beautiful mental clarity that I haven't had in 11 months that it's quite surprising.
What can I do to support you?
Just be there for me. I don't think I'll be able to run tomorrow with you. I ran this morning because I'm about to hit my 60-day streak. I'm not streaking officially, it just happens to be that way. But I think I'm on day 58, 59. I'll have to check. But I don't know. You and Judy will carry the majority of this show because I can't. So this was super difficult. Judy saw me going through it, fixing the technical issue. I can't. You know how you and I build diagrams in our heads because that's how we think. And it's like this, and there's this option and this switch turn off. I was like, I don't even.
It's
know.
all Greek to me.
It's. I feel like Dad just got a new cell phone. And he's like, John, set this shit up for me. Don't know what's going on. But anyway, let me back up. Do not do what I did. This is not medical advice. Judy and I were on 37 milligrams of Effexor like back in 2004, and we quit cold turkey after like 3 weeks or so, and it was horrible. So she had the electric zaps. She knows what I'm talking about.
Not nearly as bad as what he's going through, though.
And I'm cold turkey in 150 milligrams. It is bad news. It sucks. But I need my spirit back. So that's where we're at again. Don't do this. Work with a medical professional. She's like, yeah, we'll taper off. We'll just cut it from 150 to 75. Like, actually, she said, no, it's not time yet. In my head on the call, I was like, news for you, sucker. I didn't take it this morning. I'm quitting. So I hate doing that because so they're opening back up to having physical visits instead of just televisits finally. So my next one in a month, I'm actually going to go physically meet her, which I've never done, which will be nice. But I'm not going to lie to her. At the same time, though, I feel very disrespectful doing stuff against a psychiatrist's advice. But look, people, at the end of the day, sometimes if you can't articulate how you're feeling or where you think you should go with your mental well-being, then again, this is not medical advice. Sometimes you got to kind of take the bull by the horns and steer your own course. I know that sounds horrible, but if I say I want to taper off, I've been on this for a year, it's not doing any good anymore. And I know what a lot of doctors will do. They'll go, okay, we need to increase it then. It's like, I fucking can't anymore. I just can't. Judy's seen me go through this hell for almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's just constant increase, adjust this doesn't work, then throw something else on it. I know I'm kind of flip-flopping on my advice because I've said different things in the past. Psychiatrists are really good, but again, I know my brain and I know my spirit and my soul a little bit better. And when you're on a teleconference and you say, hey, I'd like to go ahead and taper off, and they go, no, it's not time yet. Then you're like, hey, listen to what I just said. Don't just dismiss it. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I'm struggling. Within the next couple days, too, I'm supposed to get super emotional. That's going to be awesome.
I mean, you sound aware of, educated on expectations, and, if you feel confident in the tools that you have around you to navigate that, that's, again, I'm not a medical professional either. So.
Yeah, he's working through it, and he's done a lot of research behind it. So I feel very comfortable with the knowledge that he has in his own in his own decisions. The only thing I worry about is I hate seeing him go through this. And it's hard for me because, you know, he's my husband and I love him and I hate to see him, you know, uncomfortable and going through all this, you know, when he has lower dose medication and he can taper off a little bit and he just wants to go full bore. I can understand it and I cannot understand it. I can understand it because he wants to just be completely off of it as soon as possible. He wants to be free and open and to be able to experience the happiness and the joy that he's starting to experience now with being off of it for 48 hours. I cannot understand it because he's forcing himself to be extremely uncomfortable when he doesn't have to be. So, I mean, I can go both ways. I trust him as far as the knowledge that he has within his own body and his own spirit and what he, you know, feels that he can handle. I just worry. But that's, you know, that's just going to be there.
It's just uncomfortable. You can't die from it. Again, I'm not a doctor. Don't be like John Lund on Sober Mind said I should do this. But
Yeah.
it's just uncomfortable. The problem with Effexor, the reason why it's one of the toughest, and I read a bunch of threads, and doctors even say that's why they call it Effexor for life, because getting off of it is super tough. And especially once you get up in like the 300 milligram territory, it's brutal. It has such a short half-life. It's 6-hour half-life. So what that means is after 24 hours of not taking it, it's completely out of your system. So then your brain's like, God. And it's something that it, you know, directly affects or affected your neurological pathways and synapses. That's where I think the electrical shocks come from. Doctors don't know exactly what it is. But if you taper off of it, people have said that they've tried to cold turkey like 75 milligrams. They feel the exact same after effects or withdrawal symptoms as they do if they just cold turkey like 37 milligrams. So because of that half-life, so people have said they try to titrate down for like a whole year, and then they get to 37 and they quit, and they're like, I still had a whole week of withdrawal symptoms anyway. Because that half-life. So I'll get through it. All right, anyway. Cry me a river, I know. Babe, do you want to talk about last week we did Chameleon but Don't Mix? So sorry I'm all over the place. Today we're going to get back into checking out Patrick Teehan, the LICSW, the Licensed Independent Child Social Worker. He's one of our favorites here. And we've been going through the 11 oddly specific childhood trauma issues. We went with emotional delay. Hey, Scott. Good morning. We went rushing nowhere, which was fantastic. Refrigerator buzz, depression, which Judy and I completely relate with. We relate with all of these. Being tired as a trigger, I've really paid attention. That's the other thing with the medication I've been on, man. It's like I'm just nonstop tired all the time. I'm tired of being tired. And then last week we did Chameleon but Don't Mix, which was fantastic. Today is going to be On the Spot Dissociation. So we'll check that out. I feel like I bummed everyone out.
No, we're just worried.
Any thoughts, any recaps that we want to talk about for the Chameleon but Don't Mix?
Yeah, that one brought to mind when I think you experienced it too, Patrick, when we were in high school and we could float between the different cliques in high school, but we never actually, we were never actually into one clique. And I think it was because what he suggested was that one of the reasons why was that we were still trying to figure out our own self-identity. So we just kind of would float from one clique to the other. And I actually enjoyed that when I was in high school, being able to float in with the jocks and with the well, I was in the 80s, so we had the preppies. And the rockers and the stoners, and it was fine for me, but I think he was hit the nail on the head when he said that we were still trying to find our own identity during that time. But go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I struggled with the longest time of like I said, I sought validation from each group, so I didn't want to mix them,
Yeah.
because only a certain group could validate me in a certain way, and I didn't want to think of me of less than if they knew me in another capacity. And to that end, to you speaking of, we were seeking an identity, I realized that like the chameleon aspect of that statement is not a bad thing. And like I said, that's what gave the spice of life, so to speak, like learning all sorts of different ways to empathize and connect with people is amazing. And as soon as in my personal development, when I let go of that don't mix, to realize I don't need to be validated by each of the groups, or if my validation comes within, and it's okay if I don't identify as solely one of these, like, what does it look like to be a chameleon, but you do mix,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To
I
let
definitely-
go of.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I definitely understand what the don't mix, because I didn't want the jocks to think that I was a stoner or a rocker, because then obviously they would think definitely less of me for that. So yeah, I could see the don't mix. But even then, I had friends who I didn't want to bring home to my house, because we talked about this as well. We were Buddhist, and so we had a shrine in our living room, and having to Butsudan, yes, and having to bring kids over. I didn't want to have to explain what this thing in our living room was, or to be in the middle of doing our evening prayer and having kids come over and going, what are you doing? And having their parents taking them away and thinking that we're, worshiping the devil or whatever. Yeah, that was not mixing my home life with my friends at school.
And mine was similar, but a little bit different in a sense that I never ever brought anyone home, no matter where we lived, because I was so embarrassed of my mother and our housing situations, no matter where we lived. I recall maybe only one brief time where my mother was sober and not whacked out on pills, to where I think I could have brought someone over, but that had already been ingrained. I wasn't gonna ever try it. I was just so embarrassed. You know what? Now that I've gotten older, I realize that hell, I was not the only one. There was probably tons of other parents that put on a wild show, just even when kids came over, probably did the opposite chameleon to paint that picture.
Yeah.
Now that we've seen it and we get older, and especially during the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we realized then that half of those, I'm stereotyping, I don't mean to, but this is based on statistics, that a lot of those housewives were at home looped out on Valium and or opiates and whatnot, and doing their own thing and painting the perfect housewife picture too. I went off on a completely different rail there, but those are chameleon situations as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'm so glad that I don't have that anymore, Patrick. So just to recap real quick, we talked about when, even as an adult, just a few years ago, when we lived in Greenwood, and we had a bunch of people over for a barbecue, and we were doing home brewing. And I don't know, we had like 10, 12 people over or something. We had a really small house because it's just Judy and I. And I told her later that night, I'm like, oh, I can't believe That's the first time we've ever had people over like that. And now that I'm sober, it's not even a thing. I don't know. No time to be a chameleon with stuff. But like we discussed, I think we do have chameleon stuff that happens in our work life now. You have that separation from personal life to work life.
Yeah, and I agree. The chameleon but don't mix. We have natural delineations when we step into certain roles in our life. You mentioned one at work, right? And you play to different strengths and your interactions may change differently. What I struggled with is I compartmentalized so hard that there was an administrative overhead from switching gears to like, I am work Patrick now, and then I got to drive home, and then I am dad and husband Patrick, and I don't, or if I'm out with my friends, like I was so intent on keeping those barriers stout and shored up, so to speak. But now it's like, I step into different roles and I may show different strengths and I may reflect certain different behaviors, but I'm still me, right? Like I'm beginning to learn to integrate all parts of me where I'm just not fucking worried about that administrative overhead of the bullshit of carrying others' expectations. At work, I am more vulnerable now, speak of my own, struggles when I am dealing with difficult situations, and at home, likewise, I don't have to like just bury myself in other people's expectations if I'm, like you said, if I'm not being a sporty enough jock or if I'm not being a rocker enough, rock dude. So it's just like I always have this mind, I always fetishize the Renaissance man, like somebody that is capable in all talents, but also, somebody that is deeply intellectual, but also is, physically aware of their body and, is athletic and, like just doing it. But so I don't know. It's what I'm trying to say is like, I've always pursued all those different avenues. I love being a chameleon, but like, I just felt bogged down by the don't mix rule portion of it. And when I learned to let that go, it's, expansion is boundless now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the art of not giving a fuck.
Yep.
It's quite liberating.
I think for me, it helped a lot when we quit drinking and quit smoking pot. It was so liberating that I don't feel like I'm gonna be. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm gonna be judged anymore. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I should be worried about people judging me, because I don't, I'm not worried about anybody I know, them judging me. It's just, I think for me, when we quit, we just don't have those things around anymore. I don't feel stressed or worried about somebody coming over to the house. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we would only have people over that
partook.
Well, and shit, even we're at like the same or measurable level as us, right?
Yeah.
No lightweights allowed.
It's funny, the paranoia, like you speak, when I remember drinking and being paranoid of being judged, because when I was drinking, I was the one judging myself, right? Like you build the world that you live in. I was busy judging myself, so it reflected how I saw everybody else. Everybody else is judging me.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm
like
judging myself, so everybody else is doing the same thing.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and when you learn to let go of that, you realize that, hey, you know what? For 95% of the population out there, nobody really gives a fuck about you.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a hateful way. I mean, like, everybody's buried in their own bullshit to go to the depth of the things that you worry about, like, or how you present yourself or whatever. Like, maybe they gave like a half a millisecond at best thought of that, but they have since moved on
Yeah,
from that, and that's not part of it, right?
they're wading through their own little personal quagmire. You don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Yeah. I had mentioned that on one of these episodes where my therapist caught me really off guard like a year and a half ago, when my panic disorder was in like full bloom, which I realize it's pretty much gone now. It's the other reason why I don't need that medication. I've got coping mechanisms and it just doesn't hover there anymore. But long story short, she put it in much gentler terms, but when she was, questioning like, why, John, why this, why that, if you're at a store or at blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, well, what if I did a lot of what ifs. And she goes, John, believe it or not, no one really gives a shit about you in public. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, you're not the center of the universe like you think you are. if you're not at high V, no one's staring at you and like, having their universe altered because John is there. I'm like, hey, what? Yeah, you're right. I guess I'm not. No one gives two shits.
The ego is great because that's our interface to the world, right? It is the only thing that builds a sense of I, and it's the thing that gives us a sense of identity in a lot of ways. And it is really self-oriented, that it acts to protect self, even if they do manifest into maladaptive behaviors. At the core of it, it just exists to protect self.
Right.
But it is so funny that it can't see anything else except for from its perspective of self. Like, if you live in that world of ego so long, that is all you see. And it is just so hilarious to me. Like you're saying, like you're in the store or whatever, and if you're holding on to ego so hard, of course it's going to be like, well, yeah, I'm the center of the fucking universe. That's how I'm built. That's the way it's supposed to be. Everybody's judging me.
Yeah. And once we got sober and I started looking around and listening, I realized that I think that's not to put a bunch of individuals in a box, but I realized that I think that's one of the many core behaviors of alcoholics too. Because I think it all goes hand in hand of covering up something, altering who you want to be. Your ego is constantly there going, hey man, what the fuck? Trying to figure out a different solution. You got too many voices trying to direct where you're going until you get drunk, and then
Ego wants to be validated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ego wants to be validated.
Yep.
That's it. It's center of self. Please do something, or everything needs to reflect that cements that I exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it will protect self, and it will project, to actions to protect self or align with identity, like, this is who I am. It has to be this way or whatever. And all those traits of the drama triangle, we talked about when you begin to spiral, ultimately come down to the victim, right? And just, it's ultimately that struggle between like I want to identify as self, and then the loss of control, that you don't have control over everything to do that, to validate self. Some things are completely out of your control. So
No.
you know what? Most things are completely out of your control.
Yeah. Most things.
If not all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah. So everything that happens around you is almost antithetical to the existence of ego.
Mm-hmm.
That's my next tattoo. Okay. You guys ready to jump into on-the-spot dissociation?
Let's do it.
Patrick has seen all of these. Judy and I have not, so we'll switch over to our browser.
Well, it's been a hot minute too, so
yeah.
Since we're stretching this over weekly.
Yeah, just to remind everybody, so we're gonna go. We started with the 11 oddly specifics from Patrick Tehan. Go check out his channel; he's fantastic. I like this guy. But then after this, we're gonna go into. Patrick has got some of his favorite let's call it mental health gurus or whatever. I don't want to put them in the psychologist, therapist, whatever. Well, we're going to do more of these reaction videos. I think the format's been working out fantastic. I like it. It's very liberating and gives us a lot to talk about. All right. Enough talking. Let's get cracking. Here we go. On the spot, dissociation. Sorry, we got to end it on the chameleon, but don't mix. So here we go.
Safety in adulthood, that people can make their own choices about vibing with each other or liking each other. Moving on to number 6. This one is a big one, something that I call on the spot dissociation. Being on the spot involves everything from speaking at a work event to being simply asked a question by a friend that might be a little bit intimate or even not. It could be just a simple, honest question. Having attention on us and giving a response to that attention or presenting feels like an attack, and we might leave our bodies or we're in danger. It's not just being shy. It's not about just, that can be a two, or it's not just about being nervous. This is really when we check out when we're on the spot. This can happen in tiny ways, like simply a friend asking, oh, hey, what happened with that person you're dating? To having to present a PowerPoint presentation in a meeting and you have an anxiety attack and lose your words. Another common one is like being on the spot is when you think about what happens to you when someone sings happy birthday to you. And the family, your partner at work, getting all that attention can really make us feel freaked out. I don't think it's ever comfortable. I think if you're super comfortable in that, that's a little bit weird. Maybe it's cool if you're 3 or 4 years old or if you're 5, but it's always just like, oh God, please finish the song. But for others, it can be an extreme trigger about being the focus in that way, and it can feel excruciating. And it's funny, I joke with people, I'm a musician, I play multiple instruments and stuff like that, but there's this joke to say like, I'm a pretty good musician until you put a mic in front of me. That's another example of being on the spot. Where this might come from in childhood trauma. This amazing psychologist named Irving Yalom he's a psychiatrist, I believe, actually, talks about how we only usually experientially talk to a child in this way. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Look at me when I'm talking to you. We only tend to do that if we're abusive, and we only tend to do that to children. That's an extreme version of when we're on the spot. And many of you may have really grown up with that finger in your face. What did you do? Blah, 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 like that aggression, hyper abusive, hypercritical. That's a big example of where this stuff might come from. It might come from not having a safe person in early life, where when you think about being securely attached and children needing a lot of help, you're in daycare and there's a play date and you're just dropped off instead of having a safe person that you can help with all that focus, with all that newness. So hopefully I'm making sense here, but children need a lot of hand-holding in that way. But many of us are so neglected that we're just dropped off first day of kindergarten and picked up and not even asked how it was, and we're terrified the whole time. The terror is we're on the spot. We have to talk to the adults. Adults can be terrifying, especially if you're struggling with shame and if you're really neglected. Another example where it might come from is not being given any space in the family. Having parents who are terrified themselves about being seen, like maybe they have extreme neurotic stuff about being in a picture or something, looking bad in some way. And there could be a lack of safety being visible while expressing emotions, and this feeling like we're in trouble if we're emotional or if we have to present or if we have to talk. Some treatment recommendations for this one. Like with the others, find safe people to talk about emotions in real time and increasing your window of tolerance for being part of and being seen. Increasing the window of tolerance from hating the happy birthday thing to kind of like really tolerating it more and more, and getting your inner adult in place to be present for things like that more so, even if you don't like it. Practice recording yourself. Being on camera all the time, when I started my videos, this was excruciating for me. And now it's kind of like no big deal. That's been a 2-year process of just getting more and more comfortable. And lastly, dialogue with the inner child, again, about what is going to happen if we make ourselves seen, or we have to present, or what happens to us when we are the focus. Talking to them about specific examples of being on the spot at home growing up is going to be helpful too. Moving on to number 7.
That was good.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts, Patrick?
Oh man, I got plenty.
Let's hear it.
So I'm glad we were talking about ego before.
Yeah, that was very apropos. That was not planned.
Because, you know, when we mentioned seeking validation, validate me, validate me, validate me. I need to be validated. Ego has this intense sense of not being able to validate itself. You know, as addicts in our younger years, or, well, you know what, screw it, as addicts in general, you know, like I've been very honest about this, seeking validation from others in my actions, you know, whether or not I'm a good dad or a good employee, good brother, good son, you know, like I you know, if I could do X, Y, and Z correctly, then I will be seen as a good whatever, right? So the struggle is see me, see me, see me, I need to be seen. And then these situations are very specific because I exist in a state of see me, see me, see me. I don't know how to exist in a state of I am being seen, right? So now when we finally get that spotlight, it goes, ego goes, validate me, validate me, validate me. And then all of a sudden the spotlight comes and goes, you are validated. You go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, like you don't know what you literally, like the wheels come off the bus in real time. And a good example of this for me is, you know, we've also done this here in these shows, is, you know, like taking a compliment is very hard for me to do. In a smaller setting like this, you know, I may throw out a couple of dismissal jokes or be self-deprecating in the humor. And, you know, eventually I can get there because I feel trusted or like, and I validated in the space, I can get there. But if you increase the amount of people around, if we were in an audience of a couple hundred and somebody did that to me, like that strength of that dissociation, that disconnection is very hard. And you might just see like verbal salad just spill out of my mouth and all sorts of nervous mannerisms and, you know, like, oh, thanks. And, you know, literally running away from it now that the spotlight is on it.
Yeah.
The ego is like, I don't know how to validate myself, so let's get the fuck out of here. You know, your body goes into the, you know, fight, flight, or flee, fight, flight. I'm messing it up. Anyway,
Fight or flight.
No, they changed it.
it's your body's overstimulated, so fight, flight, fuck, or is one of them. But anyway. The point is, it doesn't know what to do in that situation because you exist in a state of struggling validation before that, right? That's the only state that you know to be in. And so now that it is finally here, you really don't know what to do. Like, it's scary. It is physically scary to you. So your body goes,
what about that state of you feel like, you know, you strive for all that validation, and then when you get it, you feel like you don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm. That's your mind saying, like, you know, that's the opposite of so we think in we tend to think of binaries. It either something is or something is not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you are in a state of not being validated, you, by proxy, are not it. You are not validated.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You're not worthy.
If you're in a state of wanting to be good, say like, I want to be a good brother. Let's just use that. And I'm constantly like, please do something that reminds me of a good brother. I am inherently coming from the spot that I am not a good brother to begin with. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is the problem with thinking in the duality here. Like, when the spotlight comes on you verbally will sometimes, you know, that's the humor. Somebody compliments me on something. You did such a good job here. And one of my favorites is like, well, I got everybody snowed over. Let's complete that thought. I have everybody snowed over. I'm actually a complete piece of shit.
Yeah.
Or that's the extreme version of it. I have everybody snowed over because I am not actually in a state of whatever you just complimented me on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because I'm faking it. I'm a fake
That's how strong identity of ego is. Ego is saying, you know, all right, we're in a group of people and we turn to Patrick and say, what is your opinion on this? That is automatically saying, or it's not automatically, but by doing that, it's saying like, Patrick, we value your opinion. Your input here is needed because you're a respected either SME, or we want to know what you think. And my ego is like, look, motherfucker, we spent this whole time trying to validate ourselves, and that's the way we've existed. You don't know how to do this. Ergo, you are not valid in this space. And you're like, I'm just, my opinion's not, needed here, or like I'm a piece of shit, or, you have that's an ugly way of saying it. But if we look at a lot of other self-deprecating humor, it's kind of a passive aggressive approach to yourself to be, very dismissive and like a very subtle way.
Yeah.
Right.
The self-deprecation is something that I've paid a lot of attention to and made sure that I continue to work on. I think you have too, right, babe?
Yes, I've learned to say thank you.
Yeah, I saw.
It's hard.
It's
It's hard, yeah. My first initial response is to say, "Oh no, that's not."
Yeah, you're like,
Oh no.
yeah.
But
In
you
my
know,
other-
when you really look at them and say, you know what, thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
And I'm
Doesn't
going,
hurt.
No, and I'm going the other way with that too, talking about my inner dialogue. I read something, whatever. I ingested some information about how powerful that inner dialogue is, and we don't. Man, it is a substantial equalizer to how we develop ourselves all through life. And if you catch yourself ever saying, "Oh, you fucking turd," or "you piece of shit," or what you're talking about, Patrick, like, "I got you snowed over," then you're like, "Oh, it's so powerful. It's almost stronger than having an abusive parent yelling at you about that stuff. You gotta catch yourself and really stop, and it takes a lot of practice because it's reflexive, it's subconscious, and it just happens. Like, I was one of a guy I watch on YouTube. He does a lot of construction and stuff. His name is John, coincidentally, and he's like, he did something wrong, and he's done this a couple times. I feel like I need to reach out to him because he's like, "Oh, look what I did, John, you idiot." He's not. He's kind of. He's saying it out loud, and I know he does that to himself a lot. And he's a real cool dude, and he does some cool stuff. But it's those little interactions that you shouldn't ever do. And it's, sorry, we're going off the tangent of the dissociation, but it's
No, that is the dissociation. That is the defense. You're literally dissociating from what yourself is happening,
yeah,
to spinning it around, to judge it outside of yourself, to being like, "Hey, John, you're an idiot," or "Hey, Patrick, you're an idiot," It's so subtle, and you're like, "Haha, that's a joke," But like, if that's one of the first things that pops into your mind, like I've caught my daughter doing that, like when she was putting something together and she's like, "Stupid Beckett," and I'm like,
oh,
what? Like you are learning this, and the dialogue happening after that is hilarious, because the first I hear, I'm like, why are you saying that? Like, even I'm getting upset, and I realize, like, I'm not going to overpower this with logic or more anger.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have to sit there and provide space, and I can't control her actions. The best I can do is lead them out of the way. She doesn't understand why getting on herself like that. I was like, I'm very proud of you for sitting here to try this task, and know that there are many more tasks to try after this, and the fun is doing it. You're not going to get it perfect, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think when I was growing up, we moved a lot when I was a kid, and when I was in 4th grade, I went to 4 different schools in 1 year. So I had to learn had to learn to bust myself out of that dissociation, spotlight dissociation, because I was constantly in a new environment all the time, it seemed like. And so I basically had to force myself to get out of that. But it's a very uncomfortable situation to be in, especially for somebody who does not like to be in the spotlight, does not like to be the center of attention at all. There's people out there that like to be the center of attention, which is fine. It's totally fine. I'm not one of them. And to have to initiate stuff and to have to push yourself into uncomfortable situations, especially for a kid, that's got to be difficult.
Yeah.
It's needing to be in the spotlight is the opposite side of the same coin. Those people have, I'm not saying all, but theirs is an insatiable desire that they need that validation. It just manifests in a separate way, right? I like Patrick's suggestions for approaching this, and I want to speak to this because I spoke of self-deprecating humor as part of this dissociation, and it's almost socially accepted. You know what? It is socially accepted for a lot of instances to have the self-deprecating humor, to be dismissive of self. What I found on my journey here was, when I began to realize this was even more frustrating, was how his approaches is almost laughable or comically even more dismissive. And what I say this, like a good example, he says practicing seeing self, like watching your recordings.
Mm-hmm.
I have one from Mr. Rogers that is absolutely amazing. And when I say this out loud for the first time, for people who don't hear it, they think it's absolutely bonkers and it is so stupid. But to just look at yourself in the mirror and do this, and this is where you can see the level of dissociation and your attachment to like not being able to see self. Wake up, look in the mirror and say, I see you. I love you for just the way you are. That's it.
That's difficult. That is
so difficult. And like, think about when you say that to somebody, they're like, that's some Stuart Smalley bullshit,
Yeah.
like, and gosh darn it, like people like me. Like there's a whole skit about that. Like that is just like somebody being so self-affirmation. There's no hate in that one, but they think it's just the silliest thing. Why would somebody need that?
It's our environment also. With the media and with perception is you're not skinny enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not young enough, you're not athletic enough, you're not social enough, you're not talented enough. I mean, this is constantly around us, and so it's not unsurprising that we incorporate all that into ourselves as our own perception of how we should be.
Yeah, we use that duality. We use the rule of nots to define ourselves. Either you are or you're not, right? So if I am not X, ergo I am not X, right? Instead of saying like, my son is a good example. I remember in his earlier years, he was frustrated with Legos, and he was like, I am not a good Lego person. I suck at, and ergo I suck at Legos, right? I'm so bad at Legos. And it was like, you are learning Legos. You are not a master of Legos yet, right? You can exist in both states, right? Just because you are not doesn't mean you can't. It's just not an on and off thing, is what I'm trying to say. And to the point of, like I'm doing a task and saying, bad Patrick, another great example of Patrick Teehan's examples are another great person. I know growing up Buddhist, but sometimes the best way I can describe some of these people are like living Buddhas or living, people that practice this. Mr. Rogers is one in my mind for sure, but Mr. Bob Ross is another. When he makes that mistake, what does he call it?
Oh, that's a happy little mistake.
that's a happy little accident. He doesn't go, Bob Ross, you're a piece of shit painter. Why are you even doing this? Right?
I would like to see that. That would be funny.
I mean, but of course the people. Yeah, just the salty version. Fuck, and just like rips it up, throws it out. Like, we're gonna have to start over. You're such a piece of shit. Why are you even doing this?
See
Go
Mr.
back to
Rogers
color by
freaking out in
numbers.
Fantasyland.
Right. I mean, but you
Someone's
show
got to
some of the
make that
people,
alternate Bob Ross version.
but but
That's gonna
here's
be the
thing,
next
though, like,
SNL skit.
Yeah.
you show that to people and ask some of the reactions, and remember in either some earlier years or other people's reaction of Bob Ross going like, that's a happy little accident, and they're like, who the fuck is this guy? You know, you need a hug. Why don't you go hug some trees?
Yeah.
And it is such him showing positivity and choosing love in a state where some people have been taught different. It's
Yeah.
such an affront to some people that they are so dismissive of that, right? That they will do everything to diminish that type of approach and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It gets
The only
trained
way
into-
to validate yourself, some people know, is to just shit all over yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, it gets
Do better.
trained. Yeah. It
Get
gets
good.
trained.
You suck in that life? Get good.
Yeah.
Sounds like a skill problem to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets so trained into us. It's crazy. Patrick, I'll show you when you come over next time. I welded these little stoppers onto my radial arm saw, and I gave myself such grief, and I caught myself for the shitty weld that I did. And I'm like, John, it's so, again, this is a good example. It's so unrealistic. When do I weld? When do I bust out my welder? Like every 2 years for 10 minutes. Get zero practice. You know what I mean? Instead, I got to take a step back and go, dude, you melted 2 pieces of metal together. It works just fine. But
So
that I simplified it, but the inner dialogue of that is there's a ton that happens in like 10 seconds of looking at it, of Jesus Christ, this is atrocious. You didn't do this. You weren't patient. You didn't blah, blah, blah. You're always rushing. And in 15 seconds, it spirals back into what the fuck happened to you as a kid, you fucking asshole. You know what I mean? It's like, why? Dude, just calm the fuck down and just it's like, got to catch myself, like, stop. You did. It's a happy little mistake.
It's a happy little mistake. See it. It's fun because I love this debate this type of argument or dialogue of the duality of this. You are not a welder, or like, this is a bad weld, ergo you are not a welder, right?
Right.
Your brain's already, what I'm trying to say is, like, when we approach these conversations, our first statement is already pegging us on a side of not.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you don't even realize it at that point. So the only way to win is not to play the game. And what I mean by this is in the argument of, like, am I a New Yorker? This is a funny one, like, it's very similar to the welder or a Lego builder or whatever. Am I a New Yorker? And there, people ask, at what point do you call yourself a New Yorker? Is it if you had X amount of experiences, or is it a time duration, or do you have to beat certain qualifications? Do you have certain expectations around it? And the answer is when you begin to identify yourself as such from the core of your being, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Do you need to identify yourself as a welder or not? Or you can just say, like, I am John Lund, and I'm like a person who likes to weld occasionally when I need to. I am not, I am neither.
Yeah, it's
a welder
basically
and not a welder. I'm just,
Yeah, it's basically I am ...
Yeah. It takes practice to really man, you catch yourself, and it's loud. It goes way deep, and it's just like, stop. Dude, hey, you know how to weld. You don't even, no one in your friendship circle even knows how to weld, and you just,
so
good
let's
job,
bring
dude.
it back to the dissociation thing. It ultimately is, I cannot accept self, right?
Mhm.
That's what dissociates. You get the spotlight and it goes, I cannot accept self. And the body goes, whoop, I'm out. I can't accept self. And that manifests in many different ways. We've talked self-deprecating humor, just dissociation from the feelings, taking your brain elsewhere. But the point is, and to logically think through that, you're like, all right, I need to get to the point of, like, how do I accept self? When you say that question, how do I accept self? You are automatically coming from a place of, I don't accept myself.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get there? Instead of saying, like, you know what? Do or don't, like, there are parts of me that I'm accept. There's parts that I don't accept, like, I am a big smorgasbord of shit that's somewhere in the middle. And it's not going to be like accept self or not accept self. Is like, like, hey, you know what? You put me on the spot. I don't have an answer right away. I may not be able to formulate my words right now of how I'm feeling, or like, you can just, we call ourselves human beings, but in reality, we're human doings. We're just so busy doing instead of just being that we get hung up over this acceptance, not acceptance, just be.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Babe, I catch you. Sometimes I study you. I'll be watching you doing stuff, and I know. Sorry, I can't look at you. I'll get shocked. I'll fall down right now.
That's okay. Don't look at me.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I think you.
Here we go. I'm gonna disassociate any minute now.
Yeah. You've gotten a lot better at it, especially since almost 21 months ago since we quit drinking. But I think you still give yourself a pretty loud, hard time.
Yes, but I am getting better at it. Yeah. I'm learning to tell my inner critic, I don't have time for you right now.
Yeah. You know what? This I'm gonna sort of take a wild left turn, but this podcast is an example of me really stretching the boundaries. Patrick, I told you I had a lot of really cool equipment that I would just start buying, and I would just sit here and look at it, be like, man, this is fantastic. I don't know. I don't even know why it's here.
I'm a podcaster. I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have all this equipment, ergo I'm a podcaster.
Man,
I
don't know where I'm going with this. You'll have to excuse my spastic thoughts right now.
Let's go on a journey.
Yeah. I hear so many people, especially when I started this and I would show people, they're like, oh man, I've been wanting to do that for years. I'm like, Jesus H. So it gets into this whole conversation, and it sounds so cliche, and that is, you just have to do it. In order for us to get out of our own ways and stop that dialogue, if you go back and look at the episodes, look at the first one I did. Patrick, you were, I think, my only viewer when I did it on Twitch that one time, till I realized that, man, Twitch is a weird cesspool.
No, I watched you.
Oh, yeah, you did. You came back and you're like, man, that was fantastic, babe. And I'm like, so where I'm going is, if you could just, that took a lot for me to go, all right, fuck it. I'm just going to stream. Just sit here and talk. But again, we human beings, instead of doing, it's almost a pro and a con, because we're so risk averse. We're survivalists. That's what we do. A lot of this stuff is based around shit. If I do this, if I change
prediction modeling.
Yeah. If I change, I may not have a fire to cook my food on. My shelter is going to fucking explode. Just stay comfortable right here, just improve your shelter and wait for the deer to run by and then shoot it. Don't go look at it. You'll survive. But just sitting down, orchestrating and creating the whole perfect environment to get it can never end. You know what I mean? So the people that I talk to in my circle that are like, I want to start a podcast, I'm their only sense of realism when I go, listen, sit down. I'm going to tell you, you are going to horribly fucking suck at it. It's just going to be a train wreck. But the point is, you go in and you just do little things here and there. Look what we've done. Look, the interface of how it all bloomed, and shit, almost 300 subscribers. And when you sit back and you look, and again, go in circles. When you're talking about what we're exposed to when we look at things, it's like, dude, you're no fucking Casey Neistat. He's got, I don't know, like 80 million subscribers on YouTube. He started the whole vlogging scene. And it's like that we do that as survivalist human beings. Like, I got to put everything together. I have to have it all in place before I will start. I was talking to Dad about this when I did my cool project of, the cables and everything. And it came across very mean. I didn't mean it to be. Sorry, Dad. But when I first talked about this, I'm like, Dad, your thoughts. Because he lives here too. It's half his house. So I said, I'm going to tear, Judy, I want to take this wall down, take this wall down, take this one, put these cables. He's like, oh my God. He gets into he doesn't see the forest for the trees sometimes. And I said, the next day. So then when it got done, he's like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't, I was very skeptical and I didn't blah, blah, blah. And I got mildly offended the more compliments he would give. Not because I was proud of what I did, but I wanted to go. And I did. I said, Dad, I think you've got has anyone told you you've got like a executive dysfunction somewhere that you cannot accept change? You don't want to do anything different ever. He's like, I can't see the future of it. You can, John. I'm like, well, you and I get into mild arguments sometimes because I want to do something and I go this way and I see it for when it's going to get done and finished. You do it too, babe.
Oh, I know.
And then I have to paint. Judy and I have had battles over projects because she's like, no. I'm like, hear me out. Fuck. It's going to be amazing when it's done. She's like, I know. We can't. I think maybe you get it from your dad. And it's frustrating to me. I think we compliment each other on that, but it's like, I don't know if we get afraid of change or we don't have the vision. And Dad is like, you see the future of it. So I'm like, well, you got to trust me then too. We have to trust
ego.
each other.
It's ego, oppositional defiance disorder. It's not an actual disorder. It's part of a trait on, a bundle of some of the issues that we deal with. It is literally like, John, in your mind, you see the path forward. You have permutated, what it looks like to get to A to B, right? And it is very well existing in your brain at that point. Judy and your dad have not seen that path, nor do they understand. They see it for what it is or what in their mind it is, right? So to say, and I do this with my wife too, because I cannot see that perspective immediately and it doesn't exist in my brain, I immediately like, no, that doesn't exist. No. Why would you do that? Nope. It's literally my brain not processing something outside the reality that it is created. So what's it do? It says, fuck that. No, fuck that. It doesn't exist. I'm going to la, that is not going to come in and disrupt the model that I have predicted and am safe in. Fuck your colors. Fuck this. I don't see it. Why doesn't it be a shape like that? That's stupid. That's dumb, right? It's so dismissal. It's trying to deconstruct the reality that is being presented by somebody else.
I think it's getting easier for me because I think it's just because we've been married for 20 years. But what I see is just, it's huge. It's massive. And he wants to do this huge, massive, big, huge project. And he's seeing the project as this big and I'm seeing the project as this big. So that's where I think the miscommunication comes in. Because to me, it seems massive. And so it just kind of flutters the heart. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Shouldn't we get somebody professional to do this? So, there's that. But I think I've gotten better. I think because he's done this a lot of times, and I trust him a lot more now than before when we first started this whole relationship, I guess.
Secret time, because there's a veil of manipulation that I have to throw in to paint the picture. I noticed that, so that project we did, it's the truth, but I had to tell you, you would have not bought off on it as easy if I didn't tell you that on my run, I saw that at another house. If I would have just said, hey, I came up with this idea, I want to tear 3 walls down, you'd be like, fuck no. But I said, hey, I saw this at a house, the light shined in, this looked amazing, here's what we could do. And I guess that's a learning point for me. Maybe it's not manipulation. Maybe it's me taking the time and patience to paint the picture for you. Because it does, Patrick, people that live in a house, they don't, the concept of removing a wall is mind-boggling. Like, it's fucking sheetrock and a 2x4. If we don't like it, we'll just put it back. You know what I mean? It's like some permanent things. But I don't know. Maybe that's something I got to work on. I think I've told you that before, too. Is that what I have to do? Paint the picture?
It helps me, yeah.
Mhm.
But I think.
I mean,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say, we think about so much stuff. I know in the ADHD brain. So, you know, I am spastic as well, where I could go to A to B to C, and I'm all the way down to like G, and because I've just like, hey, this, and this, and I'm seeing G, and I'm like, all right, babe, let's go do G, and she's like, well, how the fuck are we going there, right? And I completely forget that I have to bring her along on that journey. And in fact, that's even the more difficult part, because I'm like, hey, I'm at G, catch up. And her path there is not the same one that I just took, you know, and she has to get there on her own. I can help explain, I can provide space, right? You know, and that's part of like John trying to explain from his perspective of what you might be expecting of or accepting of, right? But at best, we can just provide space for each other to get there. And you know what? You may get there, you may not. That idea may change. What I'm trying to say is, like, with this dissociation thing, and you spoke of so many fucks to give at the beginning, John, we expend so much energy building expectations in our brain that by the time it comes to enjoy the action in front of you or being present, I'm so exhausted of just building the shit in my head that I don't have the ability to be present. Right? And that's it. Like,
Yeah.
that's what dissociation is like, well, we built this entire world and it's supposed to be this. And then the opposite just came smack dab up and goes, all right, you're on the spot. And you literally go, well, that's a different world than I've been living in. So see ya, bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So-
think it's that whole level of being able to let go of control, to realize that you have no control over what's going on, and to be open to be malleable, to be able to shift and adjust, and to work with instead of work against.
Yep. I'm trying to work on that as well. You know, my wife and I can be very stubborn headed, especially when it comes to each other on projects, because she sees it in a certain way. She's like, no, here's the Pinterest board. It needs to be like this. And I'm like, here's my tools. Here's my, you know, how I see it going together. And of course, it doesn't come down as civilized as that. It's like, that's fucking stupid. I can build it this way. You know,
Yeah.
you're like, my point is, like, I am like learning when she presents an idea, I am learning to hold space and less of it being a mirror for my reactions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A lot of sense.
She wants to present. I just need to sit and appreciate the happy little accident that is interrupting my world for how I thought it is. Oh, this is a happy little opportunity. You know what?
Yeah.
So that's about it.
That's
It's just easier said than done.
yeah.
Takes practice for sure.
That's what I've been working on when the projects come up, or, you know, ideas come up, is just to step back and be open, be malleable, to be able to flow and work with, and to not put strictures on what I think it should be, and not allow those strictures to move at all. Just it has to be this way and this way only. And if it's not, it's not. That's it. I'm done. I'm not involved anymore. And it makes it easier for me, and it makes it easier for him if I can just
That's
be.
all of us. Just let the attachment go. Enjoy the ride for what it is instead of like,
And the project actually usually ends up turning out better than what I thought or what I had pictured in my head. So
yes. And that's what I've learned about diversity and finally relinquishing yourself and letting yourself go is nearly at all times I've had a vision in my head about how a large project should go. And I felt I was above my peers, that I could see all the risks, all the different paths, that I would understand the breadth of the impact. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it wasn't until we coalesced as a team and people began to bring their different perspectives together that we were able to build something that was so extraordinarily out of my perception that I was absolutely gobsmacked and humbled in the fact that something like this could exist or come together, because it was happily beyond what I could build in my head.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I look back and on the projects that the things that my wife and I built, and I can easily say, you know what? That wasn't exactly the Pinterest project that she posted, nor was it exactly how I imagined in my mind. But that project together brings a lot of cherished attachment because it was something that we did together, and it was, it was neither of our visions and both of our visions at the same time.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay. We have 2 dogs that are telling us it's time to wrap it up, and Dad's going to run to Culver's. I got a craving I haven't had in a while. Yeah. Okay. Excellent show, Patrick. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much.
We'll
Thank you, guys.
We'll close it out here next week. Be sure to tune in for, I like this one, Laughing About the Pain. Very apropos again. So we have not seen that. Judy and I have not seen that one. It's been a while for Patrick, so we'll check it out. Have some good discussion about that. In the meantime, remember, if you have someone that you... Wait, you want to do this one? I was about to say, if you have someone you love, if you know someone that has suicidal thoughts or ideation, be sure to talk to them if they're willing. Listen, direct them to 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you or a loved one is struggling with
alcohol or
drug abuse or dependence, or a loved one is doing that, or a friend or whatever, start with Al-Anon. Fantastic organization. They've got resources that'll help point you in the right direction, so you can start talking about it. Thank you for all the supporters.
Yes, thank you.
We're closing in on 100,000 views soon here, closing in on 300 subscribers. The podcast that I upload is getting tons of downloads, so fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Okay, Patrick, we love you very much, man. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to everyone that's been tuning in and checking it out. And,
thank you.
And
be kind to yourself.
That's right. Be kind to yourselves. And hopefully I'll have a good update next week to give on my wicked Effexor withdrawals that I'm going through. But I'm going to go eat some Culver's, play some Hogwarts Legacy. I was going to mow the lawn, but it's too late and too humid. I'll do it tomorrow morning, Patrick. So I'll let you know. Maybe I could go down a little local 5K tomorrow. It's brutal today. I need a chaperone, though, in case I get too dizzy.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Thanks, Doc.
Yep. All right, y'all. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.